It's good to have you here. Let's start off with your background. Take me back to your days of humble beginning. Growing up, what was the young Musa known for?
Musa was a very gentle kid. He was his mother's first daughter, even being a son. In the African tradition, right, the first daughter helps the mom in making or taking out domestic chores, and that's what I grew up doing with my mom, because she had me as a first son. There was a second child, also a son, and her other I would say colleagues in marriage. My stepmothers, they always had daughters as first kids. So for them, they had daughters who are doing daughter work, but my mom had a son doing daughter work. That's very important to me, and that created a link between myself and my mom, of course, and that's everlasting. Also created or gave me that insight about how to deal with the opposite gender, meaning clearly that at the present, I'm one of the biggest proponents of women doing better than men. I don't know whether that makes sense, but really, well, even at work, even my day job, right? I am seen as women's friend, because they also need the men in order to really push their agenda. They can't do it alone. So, so I'm one of those who would. So growing up, that was domestically. That was it. I had a father figure, my dad, very strict dad. We messed up outside the house, and your neighbor reported you to him. He was going to deal with you the African way, that is, more than he would if you had done it in the house, So that also is deep because, there's a projection of myself, my family, and what I do that I need to be cautious about on the outside, meaning I have to be very considerate in the way I relate with people. As a kid, what formatted my life really was the fact that my dad believed in me even when I was 6, 7, 8. In a way that, again, reflecting on the African tradition, he would tell me, my dear son, if I fall down and die right now, you're in charge of the family, you know that. So you can imagine telling that to a 7-year-old kid or 8-year-old kid. So throughout my life up till now, life was formatted in a way to take care of the family. And the family is 30 kids, 3 wives, himself, and of course the other ripple relatives, I would say, in a way that they came first and not me. So again, you would see that's a reflection of what I do in things that I do, in the way that I think. I always think of those others first before I hit home to myself.
And so take me from the home front to the basketball court.
Started basketball quite late comparatively to in the US or outside in Europe. I didn't start at a very, very young age. I started in the secondary school. For us, is quite young. Where I played for, first of all, my house, Ocean House, FGC Sokoto, the best secondary school in the world. I used to be a very short guy. In fact, first year in school, I was one of the shortest. And then 3 years after, I was practically bullying everybody as the tallest. So that's really how basketball came about. I just stretched over a 2-3 year period, and all of a sudden I was very eligible in terms of physique to be a good basketballer. And then of course I did play for my school then, and then I transited to the university where landing I was already playing for the Ahmadu Bello University. Then locally back home, I didn't have the pleasure or the privilege of playing for the junior category, because I was immediately, even at my young age, playing for the seniors already, because they felt I was too good for those junior or those lower categories. So basketball, ABU again. I say it many times, the best university in the world. We've produced many national players, many Nigerian basketball national players. In fact, there was a time when 5 or 6 of us on the ABU team were national players. Those times were the Akeem times in Nigeria, Akeem the Dream's time in Nigeria. Him and I, we share a continental medal that we won in Angola. It wasn't a gold medal, it was a bronze medal. But then it's quite memorable.
What is your vision as president of the Nigeria Basketball Federation?
My vision, honestly, when I was sworn in 2 years ago, I told the stakeholders then that I was going to put Nigeria on the global map of basketball. And I thought it would take me 4 years to do that. But it took me basically 2 years. I also told them that I wanted to make Nigeria the best homecoming of basketballers in Africa. And I really meant that we would be able to bring professionals to play in front of the crowds in Nigeria. That we have also done, although not as competitively as I would like. So you would see that for any international event we have, even if the players were coming from outside, they had a lot of stints within the country where Nigerians saw their national players. Talking about going forward into the vision, what do I see at the end? Would have taken care of all those, everything that happened before me, those potholes that were deep. I would have smoothed them all out. I would have been able to take care of all those gallops that the Federation had in the past, in a way that, going into the future, we won't experience any of that.
So it's been 2 years into your presidency. What would you say was the motivating factor behind your inspiration to seek this office?
It's an office that I had sought 4 years before 2017. And I was looking for the right environment where I thought I would be president, and then I would be able to, to pull my vision into the context of Nigerian basketball. I'm passionate about the mandate that I've received from Nigeria as the president of basketball, simply because having played basketball, in the country, within the context of the country, where where we didn't play with shoes because we could not afford the shoes or we could not get the shoes, where Coach OBJ, so another basketball enigma in Nigeria, he was the basketball coach in ABU, where he would travel to the US sometimes and come back with Converse, those Converse with stars, shoes. They're now very trendy, but in those days, they were really the basketball shoes. Bring used shoes sometimes, and those would be, the shoes that we would wear, play, and when they wore off at the sole, our toes would hurt, and then we would go remove the sole and then put on, pieces of tire, sew them on, and then continue playing until they ate off, and then you started skidding and slipping all over the place, and then you would do that again. So we didn't have the luxury of shoes. We didn't have the luxury of the kind of coverage that players receive now. We really played because we were passionate about playing basketball. Now, moving from there, what we did swear, and I see that there's a reflection in some of my colleagues, was that if we were put in a position where we could control things, we would never allow that to happen to our players right now. And that has really formatted also the way that we have carried on this board, where the players are really our major clients. I know that sometimes doesn't go down too well with some officials and all that are used to them first and then the players after. No. For us, is that the people who play the ball on the court are the players, and if you take care of them, then everybody else would be taken care of. And this has been our fundamental and underlining principle for everything that we have done. So that's why you see, when they play with a lot of passion, because they know that we have tried our best to provide the environment, the best environment possible within the context of where we are, for them to concentrate and just play the game. And that has worked. You would hear Nigeria is now on the global stage of basketball. You would see us defeat European teams. You would see us compete favorably, I would say. There's no more blowouts, nobody comes and then sees a Nigerian team and then, beats them by 60, 70 points anymore. And this is because the players themselves, who otherwise would have been on the fringes, have seen that the present federation cares for them. The present federation really has it as a mindset to provide the best that they can for them, so that they can play their best. And so I'm quite happy to see that movement now. And I'm hoping that it will not be reversible again in the future.
Let's talk about the women's national team, the Tigers. They have done remarkably well. Can you give us an insight into your approach in rebuilding the team, and of course, their most recent victory at the 2019 AfroBasket?
What I relied on when I became president was that I knew that every good Nigerian basketballer, given the chance, will play for Nigeria. I also know the Nigerian spirit of I never give up and I shall conquer. We have these players all over the globe who are Nigerians playing in different parts of the world. And I think we didn't know how to harvest and get the best from these players. It had to do with providing the environment, like I said. It had to do with making sure that the governance was very open and transparent, in such a way that when a player is chosen, the person next understood that the person in front of him was a better player, and also putting Nigerians in a way in positions of competence in terms of coaching and technical crew. So for our Tigresses, my African queens, I would say, it was not too difficult because I had done a preview of all the players that we had playing all over the world, and I saw that these were ladies who played for their teams with such passion, and for me it was important to just convert that passion into patriotism to play for their country, and as such we provided the environment, brought them together. And they lived up to the expectations that we had. So they went on in my very first year. In fact, within a few months after I took office as president of the Nigerian Basketball Federation, they became in 2017 the African Queens. Again, they won that trophy without dropping a single match in that tournament. 2018. They went to the world stage. I was asked before going there, what were the girls going to do? And my simple response then was that I told them they're going to shock the world. And they did shock the world, you know. There was no African team before that tournament that ever went to such a tournament and won one match. My girls didn't win only one match. They went all the way to the quarterfinals, and they were knocked out by the United States of America. It just showed to everybody that these girls were very passionate, they were very patriotic, and they had the Nigerian spirit that I always believed in. And then, of course, I wasn't too surprised that we went to Senegal this year, despite the huge crowd, you know, in the Dakar arena, 20,000 people, I'm told, with about 10,000 people outside who couldn't get in, and only about 20 or 30 supporters, Nigerian supporters in the hall. You know, they won. So they beat Senegal in Senegal, and I think that's a very huge achievement. And again, it's, you know, they played out their hearts. They knew what were behind them, and they played the ball most of all, and they won. In Mali, the same thing happened. That's the 2 years ago that I was talking about. That was in Mali. So they did beat Mali in Mali. Also, the same kind of intimidation, the same type of, I would say, environment. You know, again, psychologically a hostile environment for players. But my girls are very strong, and they have shown it.
And the winner of the National Federation Ranking Progression Award woman is Nigeria.
President of the Nigerian Basketball Federation was on hand to receive the award, and Nigeria led the category, with Virgin Islands following and Paraguay in the third place.
Nigeria has been dominant in the African continent in recent years. They have just won their second Women Afro-Basket in a row 2 weeks ago in Dakar. They have also finished at the 8th place last year in the FIBA Women's World Cup.
You were recently honored at the FIBA Congress in Beijing. What does that award mean to you and for the Nigeria Basketball Federation?
What that means, first of all, is the Nigerian Basketball Federation is recognized as a body that has come and changed the face of basketball in the country and, of course, in Africa. It also tells me on a second point that Nigerian basketball is very visible now. It's no more a Nigerian affair or an African affair. And then thirdly, and more importantly, the world through FIBA has recognized the efforts and the passion that my girls, my African queens, have expressed on the court for more than 2 years.
At the World Cup, the men's national team, the D Tigers, defeated the host nation China to clinch their tickets to the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. What would you say has been the key to success in both teams?
Success comes with those who provide the environment for success. And that's what we try to do. Again, we try to make sure that the players have only, as a matter of concern, to play the ball. Keep your eyes on the ball, play the ball, and don't worry. NBBF will take care of the rest. And that's what we have tried to do. So we've tried to do that within the context and the limits of funding that we have available, or not available rather, and within the context of the sacrifices that we all needed to make or to get these players to be in the best position or to have the best environment possible so that they can play.
Now, it's been widely reported that funding is an issue. How have you been able to sustain funding the Federation and see to the welfare of players across board?
We try to provide this best environment from sources that are very personal, in a way that, again, we refuse to lower the quality of the environment we need to provide for the players with the excuse of no funds. So all of us bent over backwards. Again, like I said, personal funds. It's been laboriously also, people who just get to hear, wow, the AfroBasket is doing so well. Or rather, AfroBasket, you guys won it. And then they hear us complain about funding. So they just throw in there a little bit. It's never really anything to cater for the whole funding requirements that we need.
So what motivates you in utilizing personal funds to fund the federation?
It's a question I find very easy to answer, actually, if you know where I'm coming from. Mind you, I told you the players are my biggest clients, so they're first and everybody last, or everybody second, right? So I refuse to expose my players to the same conditions that I played before. I refuse to compromise the conditions or the situation I need to put the players in order for them to perform optimally. If any player doesn't play well, he or she would never attribute it to where he stayed, and everything else. Having said that, I'm going to make a very ironic, I would say, statement. I became president voluntarily. I volunteered to be president, and I was then elected as president. And I do feel, and that's the only way to work, that if you offer service, and then you're given the chance to offer the service, okay, you should know clearly that you're going to be doing a lot of sacrifices, making a lot of sacrifices. You're going to be investing in areas that you otherwise would not if you are not offering these services. So it's quite painful financially, but I must tell you that it's also very, very gratifying to see that there are results that come out of this kind of sacrifice. And it only deepens your passion for doing what you're doing. Assembling some ladies and gentlemen who do Nigeria proud. There's no amount of money that you spend that can replace that. For yourself, for the basketballers of the country, but also for Nigerians globally. I must add, though, that the government has actually woken up to its responsibility for the national team, we did meet with the minister and his permanent secretary, and we're quite happy with the meeting, because we see light at the end of the tunnel now. We see some traction in order for them to take responsibility of the national team, which is actually their own preserve, right? And so we're encouraged. We're even encouraged more now to not hold any fire back.
Now, after all this is done with, what would you like your legacy to be?
What I see at the end, especially after my tenure, is that I would want to be remembered in terms of the legacy that I will leave behind, as somebody who all of a sudden, brought basketball to the fore of the country, and then made a certain platform or a foundation that was rigid, that was robust enough that anybody coming after me can only build on it. And in that, in 10 years, I think we should be champions of the world.